Los Angeles is the city that invented the idea of selling a better version of reality. The sunshine, the movies, the billboards on Sunset. All of it is designed to make you believe this is the best place on Earth. And underneath all of it is a history so dark that the city has spent over a century making sure you never look too closely. These are the darkest secrets about Los Angeles. On October 24, 1871, a mob of roughly 500 white and Latino men descended on a small Chinese community in downtown Los Angeles. It started with a dispute between rival Chinese groups that left a white bystander dead. Within hours, the mob had surrounded the neighborhood, dragged Chinese residents from their homes and businesses, and began killing them. 18 Chinese men and boys were lynched that night, making it the largest mass lynching in American history. Some were hanged from the awnings of commercial buildings. Others were shot in the street. A 14-year-old boy was among the dead. 8 men were convicted. All of them had their convictions overturned on a technicality. The site where the massacre took place is now a block from the current Chinatown, and there is no major memorial marking what happened there. Most Angelenos have never heard of it. On March 12, 1928, the St. Francis Dam in San Francisco Canyon collapsed just before midnight. The dam had been built by William Mulholland, the man responsible for bringing water to Los Angeles and making the city's growth possible. Engineers had warned that the canyon walls were unstable. Mulholland approved the site anyway. When the dam gave way, 12 billion gallons of water surged through the canyon at speeds up to 18 miles per hour. The wall of water was over 100 feet high when it hit the first towns. It traveled 54 miles to the ocean, destroying everything in its path. Over 400 people were killed, many of them migrant farm workers, whose bodies were never identified. Mulholland, who had been celebrated as the man who built Los Angeles, took full responsibility. He spent the rest of his life in seclusion. The disaster effectively ended his career and his reputation. But the water system he built still runs the city today. Griffith Park is the largest urban park in the United States. And according to local history, it sits on cursed ground. In the 1860s, the land was owned by Don Antonio Feliz. When Feliz died, his estate went not to his family, but to a local politician and associate. Feliz's niece, Doña Petronila, was reportedly furious and placed a curse on the land and everyone who would ever own it. Subsequent owners experienced financial ruin, drought, and violent deaths. Colonel Griffith J. Griffith, who donated the land to the city, later shot his wife in the face during a drunken argument. She survived, but he went to prison. A 1933 fire in the park killed 29 workers. Strange sightings and unexplained events have been reported by hikers and park rangers for decades. Whether or not the curse is real, the pattern is difficult to ignore. Over 150 years of bad luck concentrated on one piece of land. On January 15, 1947, a woman walking through a vacant lot in the Lamert Park neighborhood noticed what she thought was a broken mannequin lying in the grass. It was the body of Elizabeth Short, a 22-year-old aspiring actress. Her body had been severed at the waist, completely drained of blood, and posed with her arms above her head and her legs spread. Her face had been cut from the corners of her mouth to her ears. The autopsy determined she had been alive for some of what was done to her. The press named her the Black Dahlia, and the case became the most famous unsolved murder in Los Angeles history. over 60 people confessed. None were charged. The LAPD investigated for decades without ever identifying a suspect they could prosecute. The case remains officially open. The lot where her body was found is now a residential block, and the address is well known. People still visit. The Cecil Hotel opened in downtown Los Angeles in 1927 and quickly became one of the most notorious buildings in the city. At least 16 people died there over the decades. The hotel was home to at least 2 serial killers at different points: Richard Ramirez in the 1980s and Jack Unterweger in the 1990s. In 2013, a guest named Elisa Lam disappeared. Her body was found weeks later in a water tank on the roof after guests complained about the taste of the water. They had been drinking and bathing in water from a tank containing a decomposing body. Surveillance footage showed Lam behaving erratically in an elevator before her death, pressing buttons, hiding from something in the hallway, and gesturing towards something the camera couldn't see. Her death was ruled accidental, but the footage has been analysed millions of times, and the explanations have never satisfied everyone. In July 1959, a nuclear reactor at the Santa Susana Field Laboratory in the hills above the San Fernando Valley suffered a partial meltdown. The facility, located roughly 30 miles from downtown Los Angeles, was operated by a division of North American Aviation and had been running experimental reactors since the 1950s. The meltdown released radioactive gases into the atmosphere, but the public was not informed. The full extent of the contamination wasn't confirmed until decades later, when journalists and researchers forced the release of classified documents. Studies have since found elevated rates of certain cancers in communities downwind of the site. A full cleanup has been promised repeatedly, but has never been completed. Millions of people in the San Fernando Valley and the surrounding area lived for decades without knowing that a nuclear accident had occurred in the hills above their homes. Before Los Angeles existed, before humans arrived on this continent, the land was already killing things. The La Brea tar pits in the middle of what is now Miracle Mile have been trapping and preserving animals for over 50,000 years. Pools of natural asphalt seep to the surface, covered by a thin layer of water and leaves. Animals that stepped in couldn't pull themselves out. Predators that tried to feed on the trapped animals got stuck themselves. Scientists have pulled the remains of dire wolves, saber-toothed cats, mammoths, and giant ground sloths from the pits. They've also found one set of human remains, a woman who died roughly 9,000 years ago. The tar pits are still active, they still bubble, and they are surrounded on all sides by one of the most expensive neighborhoods in Los Angeles, a city built on top of a death trap that has been running longer than human civilization. Los Angeles has been covering things up since before it became a city. The massacres, the disasters, the nuclear accidents, the murders that were never solved. All of it paved over and landscaped and sold as real estate. The sunshine doesn't hide the history. It just makes it harder to see. Subscribe if you want to see the darkest secrets about another city explained next. And tell me in the comments which part of LA's history disturbed you the most. I'll see you in that video.